Peter Charles here, Hooked for Life Fly Fishing. And in this video, let's take a look at the role of overhang because it seems to contradict some of the things I've said in previous videos about productive weight. So we'll see what's going on here and why overhang is useful. Well, first off, let's take a look at my model and talk about what overhang really is. The green here is my running line, and you can see in this I've left some of the running line out of the guides. So my joint, running line to head joint, is right here. So normally if I put my head joint at the tip top, I've got all of this for productive weight. But when I use just a tip joint here, the head joint here, and this is running line, I've reduced the productive weight to this length here. And the D-loop has gone backwards and more material is gone into the bottom of the D-loop where it's less productive. So this doesn't sound like it's going to work. You know, using overhang is reducing productive weight, increasing unproductive weight. Why does it work? So what we're going to do here, I've got a video here. I'll show you the overhang. Oops, that went by fast. There's the overhang I have going on in this particular shot. You can see I've got about 3 feet roughly of overhang out, which is usually what I run with, somewhere between 2 and 3 feet. There is a Goldilocks zone with overhang. If you have too little out, you don't get much benefit. Let's say under a foot, you're not going to get much benefit. If you're getting into around that 4 or 5 foot range, well, now you've reduced your unproductive weight by so much, you've canceled any benefit out of the overhang. Plus, you tend to lose, there's a disconnect between the head and the tip of the fly rod, which you have to create slack, which you have to then pick up on the forward cast. So there's a bunch of things that don't help if you have too much, and you don't get much benefit if you have too little. So for me, 2 to 3 feet works fine. Other people might find more or less, but you know, I think that's a good ballpark if around 2 or 3 feet. So in this one, you can see the orange running line and the green head. All right, now this is a not very efficient cast, but the D-loop's not very big, the forward loop's not great, but we get a decent cast out of it because of the overhang, and we'll show you the mechanics, what's going on here. So let's just take a look at this cast to start with. And it flies out okay. It's not a bad cast. Okay, so here I'm breaking it down. Just follow that loop tip joint, okay? I know it's hard to see, but that is where the loop tip joint starts. And this is where it's going to end up. And it'll kind of hover there, and we'll see that. The joint doesn't really change position very much. I know you can't see it in this image, but when I blew it up on my big monitor, I could actually see it. Not very clearly, but I could actually see that joint. So I put in this red track so you can see the path that the running line joint took. In other words, this joint right here is what I'm talking about. That's where I'm following the path of that joint. So it swings up and out, and the D-loop at this point is not very big. You can see the position of my hands. You know, I'm here, right? I've got my rod back and ready in the firing position. I've kicked up to almost vertical. I'm ready to go forward. And you see the position of the D-loop. The anchor is pretty well touched down, but it's sliding. And the D-loop is not very big. Now watch what happens here. The D-loop continues back. And that, let's take a look at this pendulum motion that's going on. This is what gets very interesting. You're getting a pendulum motion. So you can imagine if, let's say this is my head here. You know, it's swinging through an arc like this. So you're getting this pendulum motion going on as the head swings underneath the rod. So it's swinging under, it has energy. It's going backwards. And what's interesting about this is the D-loop is going backwards while my rod is going forwards, and we'll see this. So right now my rod is starting forward, the D-loop has gone back, we'll stop it there. The red indicates where the point of the D-loop finished up and where my rod finished up at this point. So you can see that the D-loop point went backwards, the rod went forwards. That suggests you're going to get a deep load on the rod. Because if your line is going in one direction, your rod's going in the other way, the difference is being taken up by the rod being loaded more deeply. And that's going to give you a great forward cast. So in this particular case, you can see the pendulum effect of the overhang allowed that line to swing up and back with energy, and it deepened the load on the rod. And so now it'll go forward, and you can see there's my productive weight. It's not big. I mean, look at all this unproductive weight down here. So you can see the productive weight is not very large, as you can see in my model. My model is really duplicating what we're seeing on the screen quite well. And there's not a lot of productive weight compared to a bigger D-loop, a D-loop that's further back and that sort of thing. And it's still working quite well. And there's still a deep load on the rod. And the bottom line is you're getting that pendulum effect with the overhang of the head swinging backwards and the rod is going forwards. The tension between them, the rod loads deeply and away it goes. So overhang works, even though it seems to be counterproductive in reducing the productive weight. Yet you can run into problems if you try to use too much, and you don't get the benefit if you use too little. So 2 to 3 feet seems to work for me. I think when you're starting out trying to use overhang, stick with around 1.5 foot, 2 foot, till you get used to the way it feels. Because you will notice when you make this backward, you cast your D-loop, as it swings back, your rod load does diminish a little bit at that moment because you're sending the line back, sorry. The rod will unload, but you will still feel contact with the line as it swings underneath the rod tip. And you want to let that finish before you really start coming forward. You want your D-loop, the overhang to have straightened out. If you start too early while the overhang is still more or less level with your rod, it doesn't work that well. You have to allow that overhang to straighten out. And you see that earlier in this image where the red line indicating the path of the overhang, it was in its sort of like, shall we say, the ending position before I actually started to go forward. So that is the one thing, don't start too early when you're using overhang. It really makes a mess of things. But bottom line is it does work, even though it seems counterproductive, and it will make a difference in your casting. So give it a try. Use some overhang. As I say, start off with 1-2 feet, moving up to 2-3 feet as you get experience with it. Cheers.